Gobekli Tepe of Turkey, 11,500-year-old temple dedicated to Sirius, the Garden of Eden, the Atlantean civilization, and also to the future, to the end times. Gobekli Tepe in the Turkish location near the border with Syria, 15 kilometers from the city of Urfa. In the light temples 11,500 years ago, the stones are 5,500 years older than the first cities of Mesopotamia. In the secret doctrine, Elena Blavatsky writes, hieroglyphics, numbers, and internal symbols are found in Egypt, Peru, Mexico, Easter Island, India, Chaldea, and Central Asia. People, symbols of race, evolution from the gods, and yet science still rejects the idea of the human race other than the one made with our image. Theology clings to 6,000 years of creation. Anthropology teaches origin from monkeys, and Clarus reduces it to Adam 4,400 years BC. The narrative of the Bible does not begin with the creation, it is as commonly believed, but with the creation of Adam and Eve. Millions of years after the formation of our planet, there may have been not one but 20 different races of on Earth before the time of Adam, just as there may be 20 different races of people in the world. Excavations. The first excavations made in 1964 by American archaeologist Peter Bennett, who only determined that there was activity in the area during the Neolithic era. In 1994, excavations were continued by Turkish archaeologists from German Archaeological Institute under the direction of Klaus Smith, archaeologist at the University of Heidelberg. Until then, the hill was used by farmers to cultivate it, and they often moved large stones to armacades. The first researchers and the archaeologists showed that it's not a natural hill, and later they discovered the first T-shaped megaliths. And they were carved, of course. Now, when Klaus Smith discovered the temple, he said, this place is a supernova. From the first minute I saw it, I knew I had two choices: to leave it and not say anything to anyone, or to spend the rest of my life working here, he said. At the archaeological site, layers of many millennia of activity have been discovered. Researchers believe that the space was used for fertility ceremonies and believe that the magnolias in the center of the circle symbolized the woman. The depiction, though, do not have the fertility motifs found in other Neolithic settlements with the anthropomorphic monoliths. T-shaped have no indication of sex. It is processed, it's complex, and it belongs to the cultivation period. This in itself makes the monument one of the most importantly archaeological finds for a long time. He said, I believe we are in front of the first depictions of God. They have no eyes, no mouths, no faces, but they have hands. They are creators, in my opinion. The people who created these statues posed fundamental questions of existence. What is the universe? Why are we here? Says Dr. Smith. The oldest layer is believed to date back to the Mesolithic era and includes megaliths in the circular shape. The area is surrounded by a built stone wall. The second layer, dating to pre-B Neolithic ceramics, revealed several ancient adjacent rectangular rooms. The most recent layer consists of sediments as a result of erosion and agricultural activity. The architecture. The temple includes megaliths in a circular shape which do not exceed 30 meters, that's about 90 feet. The stone pillars are T-shaped, and on them are engraved reliefs of animals such as foxes, scorpions, snakes, etc. In the center of each circle there are two megaliths. The walls are made of raw, dry stone, while the floor is made of limestone. The quarry for extracting the megaliths was also found very close to the area where half-finished megaliths have been found. Glass tools and animal bones were found at the scene. However, there's no evidence of housing and settlement, as no traces of domestic plants and animals have been found, and the interpretation given to the buildings is that they were temples. Chronological context. All statements about the archaeological site should be considered preliminary, as only 1.5% of the total area has been excavated by 2008. The excavations have so far brought to light very little evidence for residential use. Through the carbon dating method, 14, The end of layer 3 could be determined around 9000 BC. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box. Layer 1 estimated at 11,000 BC or earlier. The second layer dates back to around 8,000 BC. Thus, the complex was created before the so-called Neolithic Revolution, hence the beginning of agriculture and animal husbandry, which is believed to have begun after 9,000 BC. Archaeologists estimate that up to 500 people were used to extract the megaliths, some of which were up to 50 tons, from the surrounding quarries and transported them at a distance of about 100 to 500 meters, about 1,500 feet. At the beginning of the 8th millennium, the area lost its importance and over time was forgotten. The reason why the entire area was deliberately covered with 300 to 500 cubic meters of soil remains unknown. Well, it could be because of a catastrophic comet impact or, of course, a volcanic eruption. Now, temple dedicated to Sirius, 11,000 BC, question mark. The ancient structure was named Gobekli Tepe by archaeologists because of its unusual cycloidal outline. Although scientists have so far brought to light 4 such circular temples, it's estimated that their total number reaches 20. For unknown reasons, the descendants and ancient builders filled these temples and covered them with sand 8,000 years ago. An answer to the mystery of the worship of these temples was given by Giulio Magli of the Polytechnic of Milan, who specializes in ancient astronomy. Magli studied these ancient structures, came to the conclusion that the temples were worshipped by the star, were to worship the star Sirius. The Italian professor said that this star was first appeared in the earthly sky about 3,000 years ago. Its brightness in the night sky occupied the 4th row after the moon, Venus, and Jupiter. Thus, the appearance of the star Sirius may have made a strong impression on the people of the Neolithic era. Using computer simulations, the scientists determined the motion of Sirius from its appearance in the sky, and then compared the resulting data with the geographical coordinates of Gobekli Tepe. It turned out that there is an imaginary straight line between the star and the center point of each temple when Sirius appears in the horizon. This happened in every sanctuary on the relevant dates 9,100, 8,750, and 8,300 years ago. Some speak of the cradle of civilization, others of the Garden of Eden, or of an ancient civilization that lived in harmony with nature before the fall. But as we can see, the location coordinates of Gobekli Tepe seem to fit perfectly with the birthplace of Jesus Christ, Bethlehem, and also Nazareth. Also, the distance of Bethlehem from Gobekli Tepe is exactly 700 kilometers, while the distance of Nazareth from Gobekli Tepe is exactly 600 kilometers. This leads to angles of 6.3, 5.4 degrees respectively of an average circumference of the Earth. All this makes us think of the boulders placed on a T-shape. This shape is actually the shape of the cross. As in the crucifix, the height of the head is significantly less than the length of the arms and body after the legs. So in practice, instead of a small plus sign, we have a capital T. So are these symbols from the Bible Garden of Eden, prophetic of the birth, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus Christ? All the elements lead there. And the one thing I've noticed, says the author, is the star Vegas, the 5th bright star in the sky at the time the first buildings were erected on Gobekli Tepe, a time that coincides with Plato's Atlantis, is located near the celestial North Pole. Exactly if we were to equalize the maximum height transit of the star, as observed from Gobekli Tepe, with the slope of each of the 3 pyramids of Giza, would lead to the following. 9,681 BC, Mykerinos; 9,552 BC, Cheops; 9,326 BC, Hephren. Another thing that no one seems to have noticed is that the shape of the constellation of Lyra, of which Vegas is a member, is T-shaped, at least part of it. So could the T-shaped dolmens represent the constellation Lyra? Also in Gobekli Tepe, it seems that the monoliths have been placed so that they are not exactly vertical. The correlation of the pyramid Vega Gobekli Tepe, 9552 BC. The Garden of Eden. The lyra of Apollo has been known since antiquity. This is harp. He used to play a harp, a small harp. But something else important is that the star Vegas in ancient Greece was called Lyra from the constellation in which it is located. Apollon equals 1061. Apollon divided by 2 is equal to 530.5. Lyra is 531. Apollo, however, was worshipped in Delphi. Delphi was built at the foot of Mount Parnassus in north of Athens, Greece, on the sacred mountain of Apollo. So why is Apollo also called the far north? But why Lyra Vegas was a star that in antiquity showed the celestial north? The Assyrians called Vega Dayan, or judge of heaven, or if you would, judge of paradise, while the Akkadians called him Tirana, which means paradise life or heavenly life. Note that the first letter of Tirana is T, which as a shape reminds us of the stone circles of Gobekli Tepe. Does Gobekli Tepe, incredible, nowhere Atlantis culture provide us with a codification of what is about to happen, of the end of the world, World War III, or of a nuclear catastrophe, the time of the Antichrist, the advent of the devil, dragon, Ophi, nuclear war, the end of the world, second coming of the Lord. Geodatically paired with Bethlehem and Nazareth. How exactly 600 kilometers from Nazareth, exactly 700 kilometers from Bethlehem, Revelation chapter 12. Geodesically coupled with the birth of Jesus Christ. When Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, just 700 kilometers away in the buried Mesolithic ruins of Gobekli Tepe, Atlantis, the brightest star in the constellation of the dragon, the gamma of dragon or El Tanin, was perfectly aligned with the north trajectory being sustainable. Thus the site Gobekli Tepe associated with the devil, the fallen angel Lucifer. Gobekli Tepe being in Turkish Kurdistan, 53 kilometers from the Syrian border, reminiscent of geostrategic plans for independent Kurdistan. Now, the double central columns of Complex D, the oldest temple at Gobekli Tepe, aligns with azimuth 352 degrees. Sirius and the project of the megalithic enclosure at Gobekli Tepe by Giulio Magli. Nowadays, as one can observe from the point of Gobekli Tepe, it can be checked by any archaeologist doing research there. The star Gamma Dragon, the mouth of the dragon symbolically, is not eternal. It sets at 352 degrees. In other words, 8 degrees west of the north, and the design of the megalithic monument of this complex D, with the central boulders and one of the apparent focal points, where the whole focuses on the west of the star of the dragon. These buildings were built with great effort and precision to tell us that indeed the time is now. Now we have the alignment. Now the Antichrist has appeared with the discovery of Higgs boson. What do lexicons tell us? What do dictionaries tell us? The war with Syria and dragon. We should note that all the boulders designed at Gobekli Tepe encode astronomical data concerning Christianity in not just one era. So perhaps in this way we can date the second coming. We have a margin of 123 years until then, and some codify it at 2136 AD. And we don't know the exact azimuth of boulder alignment. The relationship, the author says here, quoted with the dragon that is valid now will be valid then. But based on the scriptures and what is written in Revelation, it seems that the Antichrist has already appeared, but his reign may be long. And this I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.